What made you realize you're old? Whenever I have to enter my birth date in a drop-down menu. Viggo Mortensen is now older than Ian McKellen was when he played Gandalf in Fellowship. I am only now starting to realize how long ago the lot of movies were made. And I was not a kid when they were made either. I was actually a new homeowner by then. Tell us another story, Grandpa. I'll have you know, back in the day, I was working the night shift at the sweatshop trying to make that .com money, having to drive my black 92 Honda Civic hatchback uphill both ways. Ah, the glorious days when people actually sometimes made money on stock options. One day, I am asleep and my wife bursts in flustered and clutching her skirts. She informs me that the local watch had informed her that musketry had been detected in a townhouse nearby. A rapscallion had apparently barricaded himself in his house and was giving the poor constables the worst time. She told me that the upstanding police officer had told us to flee for our own safety until the ruckus had passed. We resolved at that time to take my trusty steed to see the movie that everyone in the village was talking about. That was the day that while half asleep I decided to see the Fellowship of the Ring in an honest-to-goodness movie theater, just like they used to have. Of course back then, although the movie was in full color, the world was in black and white, so we couldn't appreciate it as much as you youngsters could today, but it still did not disappoint. Anyway, where was I? Who are you again? What a nice person you are. I think I'll take a nap. Music that I listened to as a kid being played on the oldies radio station. When I heard 50 Cent and Our Club jamming on the oldie station, I just about fell out of my chair and broke my hip. Doing nothing became my favorite thing to do on the weekend. Haha, this is a common conversation with my husband and I. Do we have to do anything this weekend? I don't think so. Oh, thank God. We always end up doing some responsible crap anyway. When plans get cancelled, I'm relieved. I call it blissappointment, the rare sublime joy experienced when things you didn't want to do anyway are cancelled. At 44 I don't feel old, but when I'm going to do something nowadays I think about it if I could get hurt. I'm 45. My mother's backyard has a 275-foot hill in the back. As kids we would sled down it, standing up, backwards, on someone's shoulders, at high speeds, you name it. We would end up smashing into the side of the house, laughing. I took my 7-year nephew up the same hill to sled and my first thought was, oh my God, this is terrifying. I could really get hurt. I had to crawl back on all fours to get down. This gave me a chuckle. Early 40s and my wife asked if I'd like to go try snowboarding. Paraphrased, sounds fun, but to be honest I'm currently enjoying my relatively injury-free lifestyle. I've been through some pretty gnarly injuries and I'm tired of them. I fell on ice not long ago. I was around a large group of people. On the way down, everyone had a sharp intake of breath and a look of terror. While on the ground, I was the only one laughing. That's when I realized though I may not feel old, other people know I am. When celebrities would come on late night shows and they looked so much older, then I would think I guess I do too. Or that you know all the celebrities that die. I remember celebrity deaths to me for years were just always random people that might as well have been from ancient Rome for how well I knew of them and how old they were. Now every celebrity death is like, what? She died? But she was just in that movie. But then you remember that for you, just in that movie was a movie 30 years or more ago sometimes. I was reading Rolling Stone at the doctor's office and realized I hardly knew any of the bands on the Billboard #1 singles list. 90s music to my kids is like what 60s music was to me. I almost fell over when a local radio station called songs from the 80s the golden oldies. No. The golden oldies are the 50s, 60s, 80s, 90s, and now hits different when it no longer means 2000 to 2010. What did they replace the now with these days? The aughts? They still just say now. I'm wondering when the cutoff will finally be. It's been now for 24 years. That's not now anymore. That's old enough to rent a car, practically. It's easy to think that, but music, and culture in general, are very different now. The charts aren't the cultural staple they used to be. Radio isn't the arbiter of taste anymore. People consume music very differently, and it's more about what's in Netflix series than it is what's happening in any real-world fashion scene. Album culture is more or less non-existent too. It's not like you generally get 2 or 3 hit singles from an LP, and then tour the world. Streaming has made music sales a matter of 1%ers who get the bulk of the pie, and the rest, and the successful touring bands are either behemoths or just into the lifestyle. You don't make money from music like you used to, and it's much more about a strong image and media profile than it is music or message. Culture has become much more disposable across the board. Personally, I've got to the stage where I feel like I'm hearing about a revolving door of recently deceased up-and-coming rappers with weird names. But I think it's less that I'm out of touch, and more that the media loves to hype a tragic story, and there's no common culture that everyone taps into anymore. Same with watching the Grammys, like who are these people? To be fair, I felt like that even in college, and I was big into music. I'm just not big into artists that are up for Grammys most of the time. Yeah, but back then you probably knew who they were. Nowadays it's like, Here's Shvandy featuring Lil Gobbler, dropping hold that thought. Dot. And I'm like, what are these words? If you had told me sincerely that an artist named Lil Gobbler was up for a Grammy, I would have 100% believed you and wouldn't have second guessed it. I recently saw a Reddit post about things that were popular 25 years ago, and I thought about the 80s until I saw a comment that pointed out that we are talking about 1998. I also then realized that I am older than 25. I also recently used the phrase 20 years ago when I was talking to a friend. That hit different. The difference between today and 1985 is longer than the difference between 1985 and 1955, which is a Back to the Future jump. Why would you say something so hurtful? Both parents have died and their siblings are also gone. The big one there is when one of your contemporaries, people you grew up with, old school mates, relatives in your generation, etc., dies, and it's really sad, but not a horrific tragedy of someone being taken too early. My grandfather lived to be very old, and he got used to that, for better or worse, so that sometimes he'd say things that were kind of shocking, but routine for him, like I used to have a lot of friends. They're all dead now. I recall my grandmother living into her 90s only had one friend left and they would call each other every couple of weeks. Such a horrible race, either you lose and die, or you win and all your friends are gone. When I gave dating sites a try and found that the people my age were old looking. One of my favorite lines from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is when Frank goes on a date with an old high school girlfriend. After only a few minutes into the date, he tells her it will never work because she's too old. She counters, "Frank, I'm 2 years younger than you." Frank, exactly. When my mom moved into my mirror. Mirror mirror on the wall, I've become my mother after all, haha. My partner will occasionally take a picture of me when I look just like my mom and send it to me because he thinks it's cute and it mortifies me. Eyeglasses propped on top of my head, peering at my phone, wearing a soft cardigan. God damn it. I hate shopping, my mom loves shopping. So she gives me the old clothes. I realized recently the majority of my closet is now my mom's clothes. I already sound like her, have since I was a teen. We have some different interests, but I think we could just swap lives and people would barely notice. Getting older, to me, is now I think that's cute instead of horrifying. You know what's a totally not fun game to play with your younger co-workers? Asking them what cartoons they grew up watching. Asking them where they were on 9/11 is also a good one. This brings a story to mind. My husband is in tech and was chatting with a couple of colleagues. He asked them how they weathered the 2008 tech crunch and they both just stared. One guy said, "I was 8. I think that's when our age hit us. Was watching Daniel Tiger with kiddos and our babysitter arrived. After a few minutes, she said it's a cool show. I explained that the characters originated from M.R. Rogers. She had the audacity to ask who's M.R. Rogers? I had to go sit my apparently old butt down for a few minutes before I could answer her. I'm only in my 30s, but felt ancient. Spent my 30th birthday itching to go home and take my new cordless vacuum cleaner for a spin. Reminds me of when I was at a store and thought to myself, no, I shouldn't buy that video game. I've already treated myself to a leaf blower today. This brings back a memory of back when I was a young and single dude in the military. I had overheard a couple older guys having an enthusiastic conversation about which hardware store had the best deal on garden hoses. I thought to myself, just shoot me if I ever get that excited about a ducking hose. But, last week, I got a new hose on sale. It was so good, I bought a second hose for the freshwater connection on my RV. I was browsing a thrift store a few years ago. An RCA wooden console TV caught my eye because we had an identical one growing up, so I checked it out for fun, read the back of it and everything. A while later, as I was standing in line beside the TVS, a kid behind me points to the wooden console one and goes, "Mom, look at that ancient TV. It was made the same year I was born." I'm sure you probably know this already, but technology works on its own timeline. 10 years isn't that long for us, whereas in the tech world we were watching on only 1080p TVS with our DVD players. Edit, I stand corrected as DVDs displayed up to 720p lol. When all of my fellow welding apprentices at work started calling me their shop mom. Hello shop mom. I'm work dad. One of kids stopped herself mid-sentence when she was referring to me as elderly. I'm not even 40 yet. I threatened to date her mom and ground her. Asked a young relative what music she was into, thinking I would be able to impress her with all I know about the cool bands. She listed quite a few and I had never heard of a single one, instantly humbled. When kids referred to the 90s at the late 1900s. Hey, thanks for making it all the way to the end, you absolute Chad. You're a legend. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like and subscribe for more of Reddit's top content. I'll see you in the next video, you beautiful people.